Thank you, Lee. So now I'm very pleased to introduce two people in a row who will set the stage for the rest of the events this morning. I'm going to introduce Dr. Kenneth Robbins, who will introduce Dr. Hamid, who will make some remarks in preparation for seeing a short part of the film Fire in the Blood. Dr. Robbins is a clinical psychiatrist. He's also a collector and independent scholar dealing with India. He is one of Dr. Hamid's biographers, and he's a Columbia College grad from 1963. Welcome.
When I was last here at the medical center in 1962 as a volunteer in the operating room, and later worked as a scrub nurse to work my way through medical school, I was stuck by needles many times.
Could you move closer to the mic?
I was stuck by needles many times, and nothing happened to me. If it had been a few years later, I would not have made it. I remember the one lecture that my classmates and I agreed that we didn't need to know anything about was Kaposi's sarcoma, because nobody had Kaposi's sarcoma. It was really a rare disease, and things changed. Dr. Hamid is a person who has gone with those changes. He comes from a family that has adapted in many ways, and his history is that his family has always worked with providing access in one way or another. That has been the touchstone. And I know that he has been called India's living legend, a Robin Hood, but I don't consider him a Robin Hood. He's always stayed within the law of wherever he works, and he's not a pirate as some of the big pharma say he is. He's a living legend as a mythological figure. He is Prometheus, the person who brings access to what human beings need. And that has been the mark of what he said. And unlike many of us who make our money in different ways and then we give to charity to atone for that, he has made this a touchstone of his work. How do you stop the crime of a century? This man is a revolutionary. He doesn't carry a gun. He doesn't look like Che Guevara. We don't have T-shirts of him. But he writes things that are polemics about pharmaceutical genocide. Yet what he does is what needs to be done rather than posturing. So I want to tell you a little bit about his family and how this all came about, because it's a unique story. I am now working, when I came here this week, I was working on the 3rd through 8th volume of my History of Jews in India. Only I could find 8 volumes, and now it's going to be 9, because somebody got a hold of me at the Met. And Dr. Hamid, we haven't decided which volume he's going to go into, or whether he's going to go into 2 volumes. One volume is about the relationship between Muslims and Jews in South Asia, which is just a magnificent thing. And the other is about Holocaust refugees in India and what they brought and the experiences that they brought to India. India opened its arms, but also they left something that was very valuable. This is a person who's a healer on many levels. He's the son of an aristocratic Muslim scientist and a woman who started out as a Jewish communist from Lithuania. He was born in, I call it Vilna, which shows my own background, and lost both of his maternal parents in the Holocaust. And he unites his father's scientific and business acumen and his father's multicultural political views and Indian patriotism with his mother's compassion for the less fortunate. He shares his father's concern about the hegemony of Western pharmaceutical companies and the effect of great power politics on the lives of people in Asia and Africa. So I should give you a little bit about his paternal parents. One of them was a great king of Afghanistan, who ruled Afghanistan in the 19th century twice. His ancestors include, I think, Naqshbandi and other Sufis from Central Asia who came and advised the Mughal emperors, and the great modernizer who started Aligarh Muslim University to bring access to Muslims to modern education. Because what was happening was, at this point, Muslims were being left behind. And even today, we have a tremendous disparity of access to education for Muslims, and especially for Muslim education in science and medicine and so on and so forth. His father did not just have a career as a student and as a business person. He was a lifetime activist. He left his university as part of the non-cooperation movement and was close friends. Here is Dr. Hamid's parents with the President of India, his lifelong friend Zakir Hussain. The real Zakir Hussain, not the tabla player. And these men were lifelong close friends and political associates. And they went to Germany. In other words, their anti-British thing at that time meant that they had to get their education somewhere else. And they went off. And they weren't just political activists, they were serious students. And in the picture on the left, we can see one of the leaders of the Caliphate movement for Muslims after World War I. And you can see the crescent on his hat, and to his right is Yosef's mother. Father is on the upper, I guess, is that right? The upper left-hand thing. So this was a great love affair that spanned, they are products of globalization or creators of globalization. And you might wonder how Lenin gets in. This is the actual first gift that his mother gave to his father, the future industrialist. Now, when you understand the reaction of Indians to multinationals and the unique solution of Dr. Hamid, you have to understand something. The British came not as conquerors to India. They came as a multinational, the East India Company. Then they raped this. And it may surprise you that when they came in the 18th century, Bengal was one of the richest and most productive places in the world. Within a few years, there were famines, and the British had taken all the money in taxes and settlements and so on and so forth, and people like Clive of India making astronomical fashions, becoming fortunes by stealing the money. So this idea of a British distrust of multinational companies is understood. And now we have new multinationals who are cutting access to medications, seeking huge prices. Not all multinationals are this way. I'd like to cite one of the multinationals who has its American headquarters in Florida, I believe it is, and that multinational is Cipla, Dr. Hamid's company. So you don't have, it doesn't make you bad to be a multinational. You have to have an ethical way of giving access and pricing. This is why Dr. Hamid was one of the founders of the Indian Drug Manufacturing Association, and his genius in retroengineering of drugs, creating clones, came out of his experience in Cambridge, where he worked in the laboratory of Lord Todd, who was a Nobel Prize winner. So I want to say a little bit about his maternal family. And here he is with his sister, who's also in the audience, with his parents, with his maternal grandparents in Vilna, where he was born in 1938. This is his maternal family, most of which was saved. Some went to Moscow. His mother's brother was working for Dr. Hamid's father in Bombay. They tried to rescue the parents, and his father was very clear in saying to people certain things at that time, saying, you keep on saying you're okay here in Germany because you're part of the intellectual and business elite. It ain't so. You better leave. And he tried to get her parents out, and they did perish in the Holocaust. And it's that idea of people standing by when something like this happens, whether it's an AIDS holocaust and genocide and pharmaceutical genocide or the Holocaust with a capital H, is the same. And this consciousness is part of this man's spirit. And so when he says to you, India is committing selective genocide in healthcare, you better listen to him. He has experience with life and practical responses where everybody else is standing by. But I want to leave you with something else. This is a man who says to me, who's a nobody, the same thing that he says to the world, which is, Ken, how come you haven't asked me? Ken, what can I do for you? Every time I see him, it's the same thing. Ken, you want a party? Who should we invite? Who would you like to invite? His only question is, what do you need? And the friendships that he has are lifelong. All the people that he knows, I know him through a person who was a boyhood friend in Bombay. And to understand his personality, you have to understand that he and Zubin Mehta were lifelong friends. And he has given Zubin Mehta, brought the Israel Philharmonic to Kashmir at a peace concert. And in April of 2016, there's going to be a very special concert for Zubin's birthday, which will include Pinchas Zuckerman, Itzhak Perlman, and Daniel Barenbaum. And you in New York will have nobody to go to see because they'll all be in Bombay. Every year, the two men get together and go to the same spot where they stood together in Bombay as little boys. And you can see those pictures. And this man has a lifelong friendship, not only Zubin Mehta, but with the world. Thank you.
So now, Dr. Hamid, it's my honor to ask you to come to the podium to introduce the film Fire in the Blood.
Respected Dean Linda, Dr. Goldman, Dr. Robbins, my friends Jamie Love and Bill Haddad, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I'm a little embarrassed and nostalgic by what Ken has mentioned earlier today, and please take it all with a big pinch of salt. Some of it is true, but very embarrassing for me, but that apart. All the suffering and death from famine and natural disasters in the last century has been eclipsed by the HIV/AIDS epidemic since the early 1981. And at that time, I'm told that Dean Linda here and her husband were very much involved with HIV and AIDS in the early 80s. So all of you sitting here, and that's something that I think we all have to appreciate and be proud of. The virus has already killed over 30 million people since it was first detected. It eats deep into our lives and spares no one. It transcends all nationalities, race, religion, social and political boundaries. We still need the courage to fight the crisis with all the energy and resources at our command. With so much God-given life at stake, this is one battle the human race cannot afford to lose. It is sad that even today, over 33 million are afflicted with HIV in Africa alone, and worldwide, 45 million. Of the 16,000 children born every day in Africa, approximately 1,600 are born HIV positive. The tragedy facing us is that the medicines that are available, which can extend and improve the quality of life, are simply not freely accessible at affordable prices. And I think today's meeting here will extend this more. The world, ladies and gentlemen, is divided into the rich and poor, developed and developing countries, global north with 600 billion people, and global south with 3 billion people. Those countries which most desperately need medicines are those that can least afford them. Enabling access to good quality, affordable medicines, in my opinion, is a basic fundamental human right. It is about preventing disease, fighting infections, easing suffering, and saving lives. 1/3 of the world's population today lacks access to even basic medicines. In Asia and Africa alone, this goes up to 50%. The right to live should not be contingent on the ability to pay. Lives cannot be sacrificed at the altar of corporate profit and greed. It is unfortunate today that economic power is stronger than moral values. Again, it is important to ensure that essential life-saving and vital drugs are available at accessible, at affordable prices. Not only in the developing world, but wherever it's needed, and that applies to America as well. None should be denied health care. As a scientist, I believe that an inventor or innovator of a new drug has to be suitably rewarded, but that the drug, particularly if it is essential, should not be sold under monopoly. What is the value of discovering a new medicine if the patient cannot afford it? We all need a world where health care is provided to one and all, where every citizen can dream of a decent quality of life. And I think here in Colombia, we should all commit ourselves to this dream and this philosophy. The pharma industry, of which Cipla is a part, is the healthcare custodian of the world today and in the future. Cipla initiated the fight for HIV and AIDS drugs in the year 2000, and the two gentlemen who instigated this and who are part of this battle that we took on are here with us today, Dr. Bill Haddad and Jamie Love. And this all started one bright day on the 12th of August, 2000. And then I was invited with the help of Jamie Love and Bill Haddad to talk at the European Union on the 28th of September, where we announced a revolutionary price. And what happened at that time, that nobody took up our offer. The offer I had made at the European Union was that we'll give you the AIDS cocktail drug at $800. At that time, the price was $12,000 to $15,000. We would teach countries how to make the drugs if they so wanted to do so. And third, we would give the drug, which at that time was the only drug available, to stop transmission of HIV mother to child, we would give free in the world. And lo and behold, in September 2000, nobody took up the offer. It was only on the 6th of February 2001, and essentially with the suggestion that Jamie here made, that can you consider giving the drug at $1 a day? And we made this announcement, and unfortunately, Donald McNeil is not here. He rang me up on the 6th of February late at night and says, is it true that you've offered the AIDS cocktail at $1 a day? I said, yes, it's true. He said, your life won't be the same from tomorrow. And front page of the New York Times on the 7th of February 2001, he announced an Indian company offers the AIDS cocktail at $1 a day. And quite frankly, my life hasn't been the same since then. But that apart, that's how the whole battle started. And the interesting thing, which I think some of you should know, is that at that point in time, and you will know better than me, only about 2,000 to 4,000 people could afford treatment in Africa. Today, by the grace of God, 13.5 million are being treated in Africa alone. And the quality of life has improved. Everything is improved. In fact, in 2001, the biggest industry in Africa was making wooden coffins. And the interesting thing I would like to say is that 92% by volume of all the AIDS drugs produced and sold in the world today come from India. And the value of that is $1 billion. The balance 8%, essentially made in this country, sells in the world at $16 to $20 billion. And that's a big balance. And the balance comes essentially, to sum it up in 3 words, the power of monopoly. If you have a monopoly and you can sell your product, whatever it is, at any price you like. So I don't know, you're going to see a short version of the film. I don't know how many students from Columbia are here, but I had a message specifically for the students. And that'll take me another couple of minutes. Do you mind? And the message is this, that it is, if anything is important in life, it is the future. The past has gone forever, and the present exists only as a fleeting moment. Everything that we think and do from this moment onwards can only affect the future. It is the future in which we will be spending the rest of our shrinking life. With growing complexities, large population, worldwide poverty, climate change, disease, crime, drugs, racial disparity, political and economic upheavals, it becomes increasingly difficult to make rational decisions required for charting one's own future, let alone that of a company or an organization. Any individual, business, or industry must have a clear objective. At every stage of one's development, apart from inspiration, one needs to focus on 3 essential values. Imagination, one of the qualities that differentiates people, and in particular scientists. Enthusiasm, the feeling that what one is pursuing in life is the one single factor that really matters. And lastly, vision, to anticipate, try to predict what are the best options to progress. These are preconditions to success, apart from commitment and involvement, and of course total dedication. Now the documentary that you're about to see, excerpts of, which I think for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, the whole documentary is 83 minutes. I've left a copy with Dean Linda, which any of the students here who would wish to see it are more than welcome to see it. Thank you once again for having me here. I'll be with you for as long as you want. Thank you.